Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from irishsportsdaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University, and it is a special show for the Irish Sports Daily listeners. We've got the John Brice of USA Today Sports on to talk about the Notre Dame jersey scrimmage that he and Jamie attended last weekend, and then his big picture takeaways from spring at large, some intel that he's gathered. I'll embarrass you a little bit, John. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year, I'll get an email on the Irish Sports Daily spread, like a personal message. Hey, when are you going to have John Brice on?
Come on.
It's a true story. And I view the John Brice, it's like the perfect pump and go in a football game. You can't go to it all the time, right? You gotta find the right moment to hit the like it was Jordan Faison against I think it was Navy. You get him on the out and up. You get John Brice on the show. That's what John Brice is. So thank you for coming. Everyone's very excited to have you on the show. So it's going to be a very action-packed show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is, we are going live. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ in all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. You've even seen it on John Brice in the Notre Dame press box. From All-Americans to All-Pros and associates to CEOs, you're in great hands with ESQ's custom clothing. Whether you're looking for the perfect fitting suit, a standout sport coat, or a perfect tuxedo for wedding galas, ESQ's master tailors blend traditional hand stitching in each garment with Italy and England's best fabric. Check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. It's esqclothing.com. Boys, you were at the jersey scrimmage last week. John, let's start with you. Your main takeaways of all the things you saw. What are the couple things that stood out? It's like, hey, I'm making a note of that. That's a big deal heading into fall camp.
Yeah, that's several things, which I think speaks to the depth and excellence of this Notre Dame football program. And it's a little bit silly, but I'm going to start with how freaking good they looked on special teams, how well they executed field goals. I think Porath was 4 for 4 in live situations. I know Marcus noted that he was 9 for 9 overall on the day. Jasper Scaife just booted the crap out of the football. So get that out of the way because I was truly very impressed with it. And let's talk about the fact that Notre Dame is now big boy ball in the trenches, and that's both lines of scrimmage. And you guys have been kind enough to share your screen with me enough through the years that I've bemoaned Notre Dame not having those gap stuffers on the interior of its defense or having one kind of gap stuffer and not remotely enough. And this is a Notre Dame team that stacks up in the trenches. I would contend just about anywhere in college football. It's a very much a Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Georgia, vintage Alabama under Nick Saban. That's the stature of this team in the trenches, in my opinion, especially the depth and the ability to rotate on the defensive line is super impressive. I would give the stature edge to the defensive line from a depth and rotational standpoint and just how they look. They're a little older still than a lot of the Notre Dame offensive linemen, and it shows. And then CJ Carr is really elite. He's just so clean with the football. It's such an easy release. The throw and completion that he had with Mylan Graham, where Graham actually disappeared under the balcony because we were on the second level of the IAC. If that had been an in-game and it was ruled a completion, if that had been an in-game catch, we would still be watching highlights of it here 3 days after the game. It was that good of a throw and catch. I could not believe that he caught it. And I was next to the incomparable, unflappable Matt Freeman when the play was made. And I was like, he caught that? And he's like, yeah, and just sort of did the Matt Freeman giggle because we couldn't believe he caught it and tapped his toes.
Big time stuff. I think that Notre Dame put out a clip of kind of the end of that play. It's just like that's something that you ad lib play, like you just don't expect it, right? You don't expect to have a play like that. Jamie, you noted the interior as well. Was that part of your takeaways from seeing the scrimmage?
Yeah, I would say just especially at defensive tackle, it's just like a completely different program than especially I know JV when you first arrived at Notre Dame, it was like completely different. Like when you have like Jason Adenola and Howard Cross and Jacob Lacey. I mean, and obviously they weren't bad football players. Like Howard Cross was a very good football player, but it's just different. If you have one of those guys, that's fine. You can get away with one of them. But if that is your core, and I always thought that was something that, Mike Elson probably deserved more heat for because he was always going after those guys, and they just weren't. If they got a bigger guy, they were kind of sloppy. Like they weren't real players. They were just bodies. And now it's just completely different. Like the bodies are NFL bodies. And not every one of those guys is going to make the league, but they look like they all have a shot. Like that's a big difference, right? Where Riley Mills a couple years ago really stands out amongst the crowd, and now there's a bunch of guys that look way more similar to Riley Mills, and I think you could just see by the rotation that they did with the defensive tackles, how many different guys that went against the first team offense. I think you're obviously trying to get evaluations on those guys and try to figure out, who are their best guys, which guys can actually play here, where's the drop off between some of these guys, and they got to figure it out because they have too many bodies. You can't rotate, even 5 defensive tackles is a lot to rotate, but like 6, 7, no, it's impossible. But they might have like 6, 7 guys that can really play, so it's going to be tough, and there's going to be tough decisions made. But I saw a lot of good from just that group in general. I think the thing for me, and I would agree with everything that John was saying too about just overall, especially with Carr, look fantastic. I think the offense is so much further along than it has been the last couple of years, and certainly some of that is Carr returning and being the guy now, right? Like that is a definite thing, and then also Denbrock returning, and that's part of it. But it probably shouldn't be glossed over that if you look at like the last couple of years, they didn't have Riley Leonard in the spring. Bo Collins wasn't there. Mitchell Evans was hurt. Faison, this is his first spring that he's really like been a full participant in, right? So they're missing QB1 and 3 of the top 4 receivers on the team that year. And then they also, if you look at what what the offensive line was at that time, it wasn't what they ended up having during the season. Like Tosh Baker was the right tackle in that spring, and it just was completely different than what. And they hadn't decided the left guard position. Now this year, and last year too, they had walking wounded. So many guys weren't available for the full participants in spring, and Knapp, Wagner, Trouth, all those guys. Craig obviously wasn't available. Well, now this year, Ashton Craig is out, but out of the last 4 of the 5 offensive linemen who started the last 5 games of the season are with the ones right now. And I know it's shuffled a bit, obviously, because, Lambert's up to right tackle and Knapp's to left guard, but it's still guys who have played and like have been together, have communicated, have gone and played at a higher level. And they're obviously working in a talented guy like Will Black. The offensive line is just miles ahead of where it was. Like you could just see, especially for me, like seeing them on like inside zone and how they work together as a unit. That's always the toughest thing, I think, for offensive line is to just see them work as a group, because you might see some guy dominate a one-on-one matchup, or if you're running like, you're doing just a straight double team, you're running duo or something. Yeah, you might move some guy off the ball, but it's not quite the same as when everybody's working together in a 5-man group. And when you have, Cooper Flanagan, who was absolutely getting after it, I think too, that's another big difference, is that adding in Flanagan, Cooper Flanagan, James Flanagan, he can get after it too. He's going to be a weapon in the run game. Ty Washington wasn't here last spring. He is a better player than he was last year. I thought it really stood out. He's a much better blocker. He's just physically, he looks different too. So last year they only had Reardon at tight end. They didn't have those, because Flanagan wasn't there. Another Flanagan was there because obviously Cooper was still hurt. and they didn't have Washington, and now they have like their top kind of 3 tight ends. I know they weren't featured in the passing game, but you could tell the difference that it makes in the running game and all of that. And even without, like, they're going to get the backs more in the mix, obviously there, but like Nolan James already runs like a vet. Like he looks like a pro. Like he is very, polished for a guy who's going into his second spring. And at receiver too, right? Like, yeah, they're missing Greathouse is not fully available, and Quincy Porter's not fully available. Everybody else is there. Like Gilbert broke his hand last year. They didn't have Malachi Fields. Will Pauling barely practiced all of last spring. So you can see these guys have worked together, and it's just looks way more fine-tuned than it has. And I think that's going to make a huge difference when they get into like August and whatever, where everyone's talking about like the slow starts. Everyone's worried about the slow starts. I don't think that's going to be as much of a worry this year, just because they have like this prep, and then they're going to have all of this time together. And you also have to think too, like the defense is going to get back a bunch of guys who are out and missing right now that can be difference makers.
I'll tell you real quickly, I will say, I don't think as much about slow start for this coming season, and all 3 of us, I think, knows this, because I see a pissed off team every time I either see some element of Notre Dame practice, or we get to see the entire practice last week, or we talk to anyone who's been to practice. Like the scraps and the scrapes and the mini scuffles, like that's maybe been the most consistent element of all of spring, and it's been a consistently productive, really great spring for Notre Dame from everyone you talk to. But we saw, I think, 3 of them last week. A couple of days before that, I was told Jalen Sneed was once again an instigator in practice. Cooper Flammang has been a staple in that regard in practice. And I think that will pay dividends. They obviously have to harness it. They have to be smart with it. Marcus Freeman will make sure of that. But I think a pissed off Notre Dame team is a huge reason why we also won't see a slow start to the season. Sorry, Greg, I think I cut you off there.
Oh, no, you're good. Please add stuff like that. I mean, they're pissed off at each other. I mean, I think they're obviously itching to compete, right? I mean, I think that's the main takeaway for me. It's just like they want to compete, and they're going to compete with each other because that's all they have. And so, I mean, obviously that lends itself to, I mean, Jamie's talking about depth on the D line. We're talking about the offensive line and just like that battle, the fact that the tight ends are mixing it up too. Like there's obviously, when you look at Cooper Flanagan, you have James Flanagan, Ty Washington, everyone knows Ian Premer's coming. So like, that's gotta be in the back of their minds too. Like reps are going to be very hard to come by at a lot of positions. And so the only way you can, make a name for yourself and make sure you get on the field is by competing every single day, every single rep. And so that's obviously lending itself. I want to get into or I want to stick on the offensive line and kind of the running game, because I think that's everyone's biggest question mark, about this team, right? I think the passing game, obviously everyone loves to hear that CJ Carr lit it up. And, as we kind of talk about all the time, second year starting quarterback, the first time Notre Dame's had the starting quarterback have a second spring. So like, if Notre Dame isn't going to go do a bunch of elaborate stuff, like Jamie said on Power Hour yesterday, like they're not doing elaborate stuff with the blitz packages and stuff. Well, CJ Carr is going to figure out all of it. He's very good at that anyway. So it's like he's going to have all the answers. So it's great. The running game, just going off of what Matt wrote down. So Matt did a play-by-play of the scrimmage on Irish Sports Daily for everyone to check out there. It was I got Nolan James down for 12 carries, 59, which is 4.9 yards per carry. And again, this is the first team defense he's going against, right? Like if you extrapolate that, if you're like 20 carries, you're looking at upwards of around 100 yards against that kind of defense. Like that's kind of the standard that you're going to be at, right? Like this is a top defense Notre Dame's going against. Jonas Walton, 11 carries, 89 yards, 8.1 yards per carry. And he was able to hit those kind of explosives, right? He had a 12-yard run, 22-yard run, a 37-yard run. So it's kind of like, what did you guys see from the running game? I know Jamie was very impressed with Nolan James. I know he was impressed with offensive line. JB, what did you kind of see, and how are people talking about the offensive line right now?
Yeah, and I'm going to obviously defer to Jamie's expertise on this, but specifically, I thought Nolan saw cutback lanes really, really well, really effectively. He hit a hole when he needed to hit a hole, but I also thought he did a nice job, especially for a younger, relatively inexperienced guy, of letting some stuff develop for him. Now, I will say there was one play that ended up maybe an 11-yard run, and I turned to Matt, or I think it was another instance where Matt was next to me, and I'm like, that's a great run. You take that run every time because of what it does to a defense and how it moves the sticks and resets everything. That's also a run to the point of somebody in the chat there that a year ago blocked that way. It's a touchdown for Jeremiah Love. So again, very impressed with the run game because of how consistent it was. Now it did not in goal line, and again, it's a condensed box. Defense kind of knows what's coming. I think they opened ones versus one in goal to go situation, and I think Notre Dame only had one touchdown in 5 snaps. There was a really good Christian Gray PBU during that set. They had a couple of guys stood up at the line of scrimmage. James worked into the end zone on a second goal from maybe the 1 yard line. They had an incomplete pass that didn't look very good. But the overall, I thought the line blocked well. The run game was good. Walton was a nice change of pace back. Aeneas Williams, you realize how futile it is to have him in a red jersey because he's going to seek contact no matter what. So there's a nice package of backs there. I thought they blocked well, especially when you consider that you expect to upgrade a little bit with an Ashton Craig instead of a Joe Otting, and that they believe by mid-season or so they'll have Charles Jagasa ready to be a full contributor. So all of those things were definitely very encouraging to me. Now, there were a couple of instances, and Jamie and I talked about this, like Francis Brewu had a win against Anthony Knapp that was just like, I mean, in the South, we would say beat him like a rented mule. I also made the joke that he might have beaten him like a former star NFL quarterback's pit bulls, something like that. Like, it was a decisive rep victory. But there weren't a lot of those. And Tion Gray had a really, really nice one too. I can't remember if that was also against Otting or if
it was Otting and Knapp. Yeah, it was split the double.
Yeah. There you go. It was those two plays again, and that's part of the defensive line standing out to me in ways that we didn't see before. Those were two really impressive plays, but I gave the offensive line, the first unit especially, a very solid B for the work, just in my mental grade for the work that it did on Saturday.
I want to stop you real quick. You mentioned Charles Jagisa. What is your intel on him? I know that you've been I don't want to say bullish. That's the wrong word. There's optimism in a way that there hasn't been in the past, where it was kind of like everything was at a standstill. Nothing was getting better. And I think everyone, and myself included, heard that 5th surgery, and you thought, this is 5 surgeries now. Like, this is not going well. But what is the latest kind of on that situation, as you can tell it, in terms of just the optimism that is kind of there?
Yeah, I know some people that were around Charles Easter weekend and talked to him, and he maintains a hope that he believes he'll be able to return to the practice field in August, but kind of acknowledged that the coaching staff has said to him basically, like, you be ready for the stretch run. You be ready come mid-October. We're playing a really long season. We intend to play as long a season as we've ever played around here, and we want you almost like a superstar mid-October, mid-season call-up. And so I think that's realistic. I think we'll see him when camp opens in August. I think he'll be out there. He'll be doing some stuff. He'll be integrating himself into things with the team. He's very motivated. He believes he can be back sooner rather than later. I'll put it that way.
Jonas Walton, we got a question, Jamie. We can get into this, and John can chime in as well. From Pat Subkowski, do you guys think Walton can cut into Williams or James Carey's in a significant way? Walton was one of the people that I was interested in, and was he able to hit big runs in the Jersey scrimmage? And he was. He had 3 10+ yards and 2 explosives. Did you see something there, Jamie, where you thought, oh, okay, like this guy? I don't want to say significant way, but it's like they'll put him in the football game that when it actually matters. Did you see something there, or do you want to kind of see more progression into the fall?
I mean, I want to see more progression into the fall just because, he wasn't working in with the ones at all. Right. So,
Right.
I think you want to see him do that against the first team defense first. And also knowing that the fact that, like, you got to remember that, especially with how the scrimmage was set up and how they were rotating everybody, and then also how they had it linebackers. Not to say, like, I think Teddy Rizak and Cole Kia, like, both look good. Like, I was positive about both those guys, but it's a little bit different if the second team is like Osbury and Sneed, and then the first team is KVA or whatever, right? Like,
Right.
or Ferrermo for that matter too, right? So there's that kind of thing, and so there's a little bit of that kind of missing with it, and you want to see him grow, but I think it's just like anything, and I mentioned it like 5 million times, but it is a thing. Like, if when you go and you make plays, if it's the second team or the third team, doesn't matter who it is against. Like, Devin Fitzgerald just was cooking poor Chase Young. He's like a walk-on DB. He was cooking him the whole time. Well, he's supposed to cook him. And when he does, that's how you get, hey, you're with the twos the next practice. That's how it works, right? That's how it works. And then all of a sudden you start cooking that, guy with the twos, you get reps of the ones. Like, that's how it works, right? So you make plays and you get what you earn, right? So how basically how Anthony Knapp said, he started out as the fourth string center when he started out in that spring. By the end of the spring, he was the second team left tackle, right? And then obviously, when they or like the third team left tackle, and then but beginning of the season, he was the first team left tackle. Like, so it can change like that quickly, right? So I would say that Walton probably showed enough that, yeah, he's earned more chances to get a look, because exactly what JB was saying. If you look at, like, say, Nolan James, I was very impressed with him overall, but you can look at that one run, or just in general, and say, well, he didn't have any explosives. And it's like, you need to have some explosives from the running back position, especially considering, like, they, you're going against a good defense, but when they block it really, really well, it was always a home run if it was Price or Love, right? Like, It was always home run. And the thing is like, not even just home runs, but you got to hit doubles and triples too, right? So if the thing that will determine whether or not, like, Nolan James or Aeneas Williams is the number one back, or if one of these other guys, Osborne, Walton, Kedron Young, if one of those other guys can kind of jump in and be, one of the top two, or they're going to play three, or whatever they're going to decide, is who's the guy who can offer that. And that's what made Notre Dame so dangerous. Like, how many teams have two guys that it's basically anytime they touch the ball, it could happen. And I mean, Kyron Williams always seemed like he was never that guy, but then he would break stuff too, right? So I don't know. So we'll have to see with I think Williams, who has broken stuff in games, right? So we'll have to see. But we'll have to see with James. But I think that is how one of those guys, jumps the line. Just like Josh Adams in 2015, right? No one talking about him. Everyone was like Dexter Williams. He's the guy who was, a top 100 prospect. Everyone way more excited. He was higher ranked than Josh Adams. Josh Adams coming off the knee injury, all that. All of a sudden, Josh Adams breaks off a 70-yard run. He's like just dusting Max Redfield in camp. Well, all of a sudden, Josh Adams is the guy who's there. Who, when Torian Folston gets hurt, he's RB2, and then he it goes from there.
Yeah.
Real quick, I do think that later in the day on Saturday morning, I thought Walton got a couple of series, or at least a couple of carries against the ones. I had him in my notes getting a little bit of work later in the day, Jamie, maybe when they were going towards what would be the north end zone of the IAC. I thought Walton got a series with the ones. I could be wrong.
You're right. He did.
I think he did, and I've got him down for
Yes.
a carry of 0 and a carry of 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
did,
but
yeah.
I'll tell you what, one of his best plays, and I definitively remember talking about this with Matt, is Koakia came on a delayed middle blitz and absolutely detonated Walton, but he didn't get to the quarterback. Walton stood in there and took it and had really good pass pro on the play. It's one of those that no matter how much I
Gave
try
Grubbs
to
a chance.
articulate it, yeah, no matter how much I try to articulate it, I will not do justice to the hit that Koa put on, because it was a boomer, and to the job that Walton did. And you could tell Walton was shook, but he held his ground and he kept Koa off of the quarterback. And it was a big time play within a play in the scrimmage. I think Walton can be that guy. I think Walton is dynamic enough that, how many carries does he totally take away from Aeneas and Nolan James? I'm not sure, but I think he finds his way into carving some sort of role for this Notre Dame football team in the fall. And Johnny S3, thank you on Francis Brew. I'll do a little better on that.
I don't. Sometimes when I like Joggy, like he's told us a number of times, and I can never, in my mind, I can't ever get it right. On Walton, I think it was important that he showed that he could be a running back, because he came from an offense where he was kind of in a weird role. In a lot of ways, this was similar to Jeremiah Love, where when he was in high school, he didn't have that like traditional running back role. It was like an H-back stuff. And it was like, can he translate into being an actual running back? Obviously he could. But you want to see that from Walton. And it's also why, like, if you've got a 10-5 guy, then bring him onto your team and teach him how to be a running back, or give him the opportunity to be a running back and run inside the tackles. Because if they hit, there's a 10-5 guy. I mean, this is my whole thing with Lathan Wisington, by the way, who also ran a 10-4 this last weekend. So he's getting faster. I bet you if he runs into May and June, he'll run in the 10-3s, because he's trending in that direction. Get those guys in there. I'm fully on board, because you think about, like, when JB was talking about James, if it was Jeremiah Love, it's around the corner and it's a touchdown. Nolan James 4.9 yards per carry, which is around kind of what Kyron Williams had throughout his career. He was never a 6 yards a carry guy. And if you think about it, obviously, great running back, right? Great. But the offenses that he played for, not super explosive, right? Like, every drive starts with X amount of maximum first downs. You want to cheat first downs. You want to steal first downs as much as you can. I mean, that's what offense is now. And a guy like Jonas Walton allows you to do that, right? So, obviously there's room for a back like Nolan James, room for a back like Aeneas Williams. There's also a ton of room for backs like Jonas Walton, Javion Osborne, should he get there, and that sort of thing. I mean, that's why you want the explosiveness.
Wisington, by the way, ran 4.45 at Under Armour camp this spring too, at 200 pounds, and like broad jump.
Electronic 4.45.
Electronic 4.45.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, obviously too, right? Like, it's just, those times are, if someone's running 10-4, 100 meters, they're pretty legit. But
yeah,
I think when you do, it's also, as you would know, Greg, it's different when you're like, if a guy's doing it if he's 170, it's a little different than doing it at 200 pounds.
Right.
It's impressive. And that's the thing about Walton too. He was big and was running those times. So that's what kind of made it more impressive. And I always thought too, that if you watch his junior film, it didn't really look like he had the juice that matched up with his track times, but then you saw it more as a senior. That definitely showed up.
And that's great. Noah Grubbs, seems to me like he has a chance to be a football player, and credit to him, because I was not super high on him. Jamie noted on Power Hour that he was a lot more mobile within the pocket than we would have expected. If he's throwing picks, I do not care. That's totally fine. You're getting all these reps with the twos against this defense. You should be throwing picks, because you got to figure out, man, these guys are different, right? This isn't high school anymore. This is Notre Dame secondary. You're going to throw interceptions. That's totally fine. CJ Carr was throwing a bunch of picks early on in his career. And if he was a 5-star player, we'd all be saying that's great. So I'm not getting on him for picks. He was able to move the team just the way that I would have wanted Blake Hebert to move the team if he was the second team guy. I'm all good with it. But Noah Grubbs has a chance, and I think that's something that should be taken away from this spring for the Notre Dame staff. It's like he's got a chance to be something. JB, what have you heard on Noah Grubbs? Not just what you saw in the Jersey scrimmage, but just as this spring has gone on.
Yeah, certainly he's done nothing to dissuade his chances to earn the backup quarterback job, and in theory that will be a position that gets a lot of snaps in the fall, because Notre Dame should beat the hell out of some teams. So
yeah.
I thought what he did Saturday overall was incredibly encouraging. Like you, I'm not particularly worried about the picks, especially he showed some pretty good poise on at least 3, if not 4, really bad snaps, and he was heady enough to kick a ball out of the end zone for a safety. You don't want him trying to fall on it and it squirting loose and it becoming a touchdown. So I loved his awareness there. A couple of other bad snaps, he was able to get the ball away or mitigate disaster. The pick that Luke Talich had was just a supreme play. Like, I haven't paid attention to see if Notre Dame released it, but if you watch Luke Talich's eyes and watch him read Grubb and then drift in and get what basically was almost a pick six, about a 56-yard return down inside the 5-yard line, that's a guy who's going to play in the NFL. Noah Grubbs will be better because of that. I thought Saturday was, in a lot of ways, a microwave of 2 weeks of spring camp for Noah Grubbs, if not even more than that. Like, what he did Saturday and how much he should benefit from that going through this week. It's got to make him feel better about the role he'll have in the blue and gold game when he's going to get a lot of reps again. And it's got to make him feel better about what he needs to do and improve upon, and what he can like and improve upon out of his work on Saturday.
What did you see there, Jamie?
Yeah, I was really impressed with him. I just thought that, there was things obviously like where he looked like a freshman, which you expect in an early enrollee who's, should still be in high school. But there are a lot more things that I thought showed that he was way further ahead than a lot of guys that come in early, especially because if you think about it, there's so many of these guys that have come in, they've been like the 4th quarterback and don't get any reps. So this is super valuable for him to get all this right now. And he made some big time throws, right? Like, he also missed on some stuff. And I would say, like, if you're going to compare like his ball placement to CJ Carr's, there is no comparison, right? Like, but at the same time, that is something that you expect to get better, and he's just going to get better over time too. And I think that I think all you want to see from any one of those guys too is like no definitive thing about, hey, he's going to be this. It's like, well, he has a chance, because at quarterback, you just never know, right? Like, you just never know until you actually get thrown into the fire. I also give me an excuse to kind of give some props to, I think a lot of the second team offensive line, where I would say like last year, the last few years, really, like the second team offensive line, they would just get absolutely dominated in these kind of scrimmages. To the point that no matter who it was, Minchie, Angeli, Carr, whoever was back there playing quarterback at that time, they barely had any time to do anything, right? Like, they were, again, just destroyed, run over. And I think this part of it is that they're not playing a lot of where a Grayson McKeo, who's an early enrollee freshman, that guy would have been with the second team in another year, right? So that's another thing where it's benefit from the health. Where like Owen Strebig, last year he was completely overwhelmed, right? He just looked like, wow, this guy's got a long way to go. And I'm not saying he's anywhere close to like Lambert or Will Black right now, or that he would even, Augustine is above him or whatever too. But now you look at Strebig and you're like, he is miles ahead of where he was. He's shown real improvement. He looks like he might be able to play at Notre Dame, where last year it was undetermined. Like you didn't see enough. And I think across the board, you would say that for all of those guys on like who worked with like the twos, is that those guys look a lot more like legitimate. And that also just, it gives a guy like Grubbs a chance to do stuff. It's not to say that he wasn't pressured or anything like that too, but he wasn't running for his life every play. So he gets to actually run the offense. And I think that was, really, really helped a lot.
Yeah. Piggybacking on that a little bit, I should have touched on this earlier when we were just talking about differences in the roster and particularly in the trenches. But the bottom third of the Notre Dame roster right now, I would contend just a few short years ago would have more likely constituted like, starting in the 20 percentile. Like this, the bottom third of this roster would have been so much further collectively up the depth chart. And that's where I think Marcus Freeman and company have done the greatest job, is just the competitive depth and what this roster now has, 1 through 95 or 94 or whatever you want to call it in terms of like the true scholarship players that are out there. Like, it's just so much better in that bottom third and so much more competitive, which ultimately means the team, when it takes the field, is going to be that much better because they're inevitably seeing better competition and practice on a day in, day out basis.
More quality reps for sure. It certainly seems like Jordan Faison's taken a bit of a leap in terms of, he's kind of the man. I think the Mylan Graham situation, I think the Mylan Graham situation is almost, I'm going to choose my words, like almost team transforming in the way that, because when you think about, if you think Notre Dame's main running backs are going to be Nolan James and Aeneas Williams, I talked about stealing first downs. If you're not going to get it there, you got to get it from somewhere else. It sounds like Mylan Graham's been just kind of lights out this entire spring. And if you can make that change where it's like, hey, we're really getting over the top on teams, not just with Faison, but we're also doing it with Mylan Graham, a talent like Mylan Graham. I know people have been excited about Micah Gilbert as well. It's like that is kind of the trade-off there. Notre Dame doesn't have Love and Price anymore, but you had someone like Mylan Graham. Is that kind of accurate in the way that things kind of seem to be vibing, John? Is just like those two guys are just kind of a step ahead?
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, Faison led the team in receptions Saturday. I think he's led the team all spring. Graham looked like a difference maker. And the thing that I don't think should be understated, and I don't believe that it can be overstated, is how good they were Saturday in third downs because of CJ Carr's command. And there are enough different weapons that he can check down to Faison and know that he's going to get 6 yards on 3rd and 5. And that he's going to make good decisions. And so we talk a lot about Tay Johnson and Adon Schuler being erasers on the back end of the defense, but CJ Carr is emerging, I think, as a third down eraser because of his command of the offense and the weapons that he has to deal with it. And you're right, they're not going to be as many chunk plays out of the run game this year without Price and Love. I'm not breaking any news here. But you're going to have to find some chunk plays somewhere so that you're not constantly asking CJ Carr to lead 9, 10, 11, 13, 16 play scoring drives. But when you do bog down and face a third down that you got to pick up in a key situation, Carr proved he could do that time and again on Saturday. There was a trust there with his receivers, particularly with Faison, who when I've talked to people that have been guests at practice, it's very clearly Faison, Graham, and Gilbert are the three. And then there's the next three behind that. Bubba Frazier has been consistently competing to be in that group of next three. Cam Williams has had a good spring overall. He had a tough drop this past Saturday, but that's kind of where those things are.
What do you see from Graham, Jamie?
I mean, I thought he looked great. He looked awesome. Obviously, he didn't have he had the one big catch that, we kind of went over before, but he didn't have anything that was like super explosive. He drew a PI on one slot fade against Christian Gray, but he didn't have anything else that was like super flashy or anything like that. I just thought for someone who was especially coming in as a transfer and a guy who hasn't played that much at Ohio State.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he hasn't played. Like, he looked like someone who was very comfortable in knowing like, okay, well now we're getting man, or we're getting zone instead of man here. Well, I got to sit right here, and Carr's going to find me. And then boom, the ball's on him. Right. Like, he was, I thought, really just advanced in that kind of way. Obviously he's just such a natural receiver. The ball just kind of just like, he just absorbs it so well. He's just got really natural hands. I mean, Gilbert is did pretty much nothing in the game, and you can obviously attribute a lot to Leonard Moore there. But I would say just in general too, like they didn't like Cam Williams, like he was open for a deep shot, Grubbs missed him on one. Just in general, the boundary wasn't like featured, and sometimes that's just how it goes in the thing. And with the tight end, like the tight end wasn't featured at all, basically in the scrimmage. I don't know what that's going to mean for the season or not, right? Like of how those guys are going to be used. And whether that means like, well, James Flanagan, take him off the list of what he can impact and his speed. No, I don't know yet, right? Well, it's only one scrimmage, and we'll see where guys go into the fall. But I think it's firmly established that, obviously, Faison's already established himself. He's
right.
more than established. But Graham has established, like, he is going to be a factor. Like, he is going to be a factor in some way, right? And then it's just determining about, like, everything else. Like, obviously, Greathouse's health, and where it goes from there. But, like, they're just so much deeper in just in general. Like, Logan Saldate is a good football player, and he's basically with the threes. And I mean, he made some plays in the scrimmage too, but obviously it's against the threes for the most part. Mm-hmm. But it's not like a knock on him. It's just that's kind of just what they have at the positions right now. It's just tough to get in. Where, I mean, you mentioned it a million times about 2023. Like, just night and day. It's night and day difference, right? Where like Rico Flores like had to play. Like they didn't have any job. Like you have to play Rico Flores. And now if that was like freshman Rico Flores stepping into this thing, he'd be third or fourth team, right? Like it's just what it would be. It's just completely different. And I think one of the things this year that I think could be different, because obviously Fields was such a downfield threat and what he could do and like win the jump balls and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see with like Gilbert or Porter, because I think Porter, he's like definitely a big wild card if he's healthy, right? And what he can be there, because that's who he was. He was like that big bodied jump ball receiver. That's why he was like a 5-star kid. But I think they're going to be just way more dangerous after the catch this year, just in general. Like Faison has always had something, but I just don't think that you've seen him used in a lot of the free access stuff. They've used him with screens, but I think even more so, just some more like short underneath stuff. Like he caught a slant in this thing where he just turned it up. He's just going to be able to do a lot more there, and I think Graham also can kind of offer some of that too, and where you're going to get some of those where, you're going to still have the downfield passing. You're going to have that. And it, obviously depending on the team, but that's the kind of thing where you're going to get like, hey, this should be like a 6-yard gain. Well, that turns into like a 22-yard gain because they broke a tackle or two.
Yeah. Quickly, Saldate had a really good catch late in the work on Saturday where he absorbed some contact in the end zone. It was a really good throw by Grubbs. It was a touchdown play when the offense was still trying to earn the right to wear the home jerseys in the blue and gold game this weekend. But he caught it in between a DB and a safety, absorbed some contact, kind of got spun around, held on to it. It was a nice play. To your point, he would have been top 5 in the rotation in 2023, and he's going to have to scratch and claw and fight to be anything above 7 or 6 in the rotation moving into 2026. In terms of Mylan Graham, I think we know that Notre Dame's opponents are going to know exactly who number 6 is, Faison, going into the season. It's not going to take them long at all to realize they've got a scout number 5 as well.
Well, I mean, we talked about this, Jamie. I mean, at LSU, they were a field slot team. It wasn't. It wasn't like boundary. I don't even know who their boundary receiver was. And I didn't covered LSU, but I know it was Brian Thomas at the field, and I know it was Malik Neighbors in the slot, right? And so that's kind of what it was. And I think this year's shaping up to be that, right? And I think it was Mylan Graham who talked to Malik Neighbors, like when he was kind of thinking about coming over to Notre Dame and just like what that offense was like. So. That's what I mean. There might be a shift in the way that Notre Dame, not in the plays necessarily, but just how the field is kind of tilted, I think it could be very different in 2026.
Definitely. And I think one of the things too was that CJ Carr last year, I think, especially because of the picks and stuff that he was, struggling with in fall camp, he was definitely hesitant to throw the ball over the middle early in the season. It grew as the season went along, and now he's just like seeing it better. So he's not scared to make those throws there. So, that's where he obviously did a lot of work with Graham, is like over the middle to the slot there. And I think because of, if you think of like Neighbors, he was like 50% slot and like 50% on wide. They moved him around a lot.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see too, like Faison caught a slot fade for a big play on like a back shoulder, really nice throw by Carr on it too. That, you're going to see those guys move around. Also too, like, this is why it doesn't discount, like when people are like, well, I guess this means Greathouse. So no, I don't think so. Cause I think they're going to be able to find ways to, get matchups. That's what Mike Denbrock does really, really well, is like, he finds Waldo, they go after him, and that's that. And they cook those guys. That's how often, like, he doesn't get enough credit for what he does in those situations where they've found big plays because they've hunted matchups, right? And everybody knows that most of these teams that they're going to play are going to have not an adequate nickel.
Right.
Most teams don't. So that's why too, like Graham you might cook this year, right? Like, no.
I mean, I'm very, very high on Graham, obviously. Is there concern about Greathouse? This is third pretty big soft tissue. He had a soft tissue as a freshman. Soft tissue cost him his year last year, and now it's soft tissue again in the spring. I don't know how much of a spring he's had. It's kind of getting to that point where I'm getting a little concerned.
think it's tough. It's tough to say because you, like, sometimes you see that where it's like it didn't obviously bug him the whole 2024 season. Right. So I don't know. And I don't know how like cautious they're being, like overly cautious with it right now. Maybe you can speak to it, John, if you know more about it, but like, it just, like, I'm not worried about now. If this is happening in August and it's like, yeah, he didn't really take part today, I'm like, that is when my radar is up and I'm like, that is not good. Like you can't count on him, because I think that was the thing with Jaden Thomas, had a lot of that too.
Yeah.
And you'd see that a lot where like, well, Jaden Thomas isn't doing anything today. And you're like, that's not good. And it's always that, right? Where it's like, he's in full pads. Like, so Greathouse wasn't pads and he went through warm-ups, but you could see like he wasn't going full speed. He's at the back of the line doing stuff on air. And so I'm not going to worry about it. April, August. Yeah. If it gets to that.
Yeah. If it's a week before the Jersey scrimmage that the Notre Dame usually hosts inside the stadium, that's kind of the official end of preseason camp in August, and he's a non-participant, you start getting real concerned. But right now, it's frustrating, but I also think it's highly precautionary, and he's still a guy that, despite all the injuries, has played a lot of football for you. He's arrived in big moments for you. Overall, he's a very technically sound football player, and I think that we would see them pushing the envelope more if this was in season and a key contest. So, it's not ideal by any stretch. I don't want to indicate that, but I do think that it's far more management than it is necessity at this point.
I think the biggest thing in the secondary has been nickel. Christian Gray played most of the nickel. Dallas Golden was out with the little back issue. Christian Gray took the kind of the first team snaps. They're also using Luke Tylich there, which is, again, like we talked about it on our last show, Jamie. I'm big, love Luke Tylich as like that hybrid safety linebacker nickel guy. Like, I think there's something there. I think there's really something there in certain situations when you need it. But Christian Gray worked in the nickel. How's John? How is that going? not just in the scrimmage itself, but just also what you're hearing about it. I mean, are they comfortable with it? Do they like him there?
Yeah, they've worked him at nickel a lot this spring. It
Yeah.
was by no means just this past Saturday, or
Right.
just this past Saturday wasn't remotely his only extensive work there. They like it. They believe it helps them get their best players in the back end on the field together at the same time. So he has to continue to work and get more and more comfortable there, and work on some eye discipline things, but he is doing a nice job there. They like him there. They like the collective talent of that group, obviously. And I think that's one point kind of tying into what Jamie was just talking about the throw game, is that as it's been put to me, it's really difficult to judge what Notre Dame has done or can do downfield this spring, because the secondary is so good. CJ Carr, quote, rarely gets a chance to turn it loose and show us what he can do. And that's a quote from campus. And so I think that's important to note when you're looking at that, and when you're looking at what Notre Dame can potentially do downfield, because I do think Mylan Graham is going to be a downfield guy, and I think Jordan Faison can be a significant downfield guy. And then do they have someone else emerge beyond that? But yes, they like Christian Gray there. He's got unbelievable arm length. And along those lines, to your point about Luke Talich, I was told this week that he has 7-foot wingspan. So you talk about a guy in the nickel that's got an 84-inch wingspan. He can do some stuff for you. And yeah, Luke Talich made a play. Jamie, I would imagine, knows what I'm talking about. They kind of had him at a weak side backer position, drifting out into zone, and he reads the play really well, and he doesn't quite get there. He dives trying to break up the ball, but in the process of not quite being able to break up the ball, he tackles the receiver, and it might have been a running back. It might have been Nolan James. I can't quite remember, but he limited it to a 2.5-yard gain because he read the play so well. He drifted out there, he broke on the ball, and then he still made the tackle.
Yeah, I think that was James on that one. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just saying I love that Luke Talich is on that second team, because he gets to run it and be the captain of it. I think that's really good for him, just as a football player, that he gets to take charge of an actual unit. Because if the second team linebackers are in there, he's kind of the most senior guy, right? And he's in the back end. He gets to be in charge of that. I think that's really good for him, just as a development thing. If one of Schuler or Tay Johnson were to go down, he can come in and just kind of be in command there as well. And I think that's a really good thing for him. I mean, he's way overqualified as a second team safety, but it's good for him to kind of be the key to that whole unit. John, I feel like once a year you are you get a story that no one else gets. And so one day you tweet out and you have a story about they changed the rules for the special teams, and it's like they changed it because Notre Dame is making people upset and hurting their feelings and making it hard for them to know who to cover. And so they just decided to unilaterally change a rule that nobody likes and none of the special teams coaches actually like. Go into specifically what they are doing and why they are doing it, and whether or not this is because the last I heard you talk about this, there was some ambiguity as to whether or not it was actually going to get ratified or if it was going to get changed because of the way that it kind of went down, that it wasn't really voted on. So kind of give us the deets on all that
so
stuff.
Kind of starting in reverse there with your last question first. It did get ratified. I did get somewhat of a tersely worded statement from the NCAA asking me to include that in my forthcoming coverage or ongoing coverage. And that is to say, we believe it was passed basically in broad daylight and full transparency. Never mind that even as of last week, special teams coordinators were still going, wait, this is the new rule. So it will be in effect for the 2026 season. What it basically says is that the two players lined up either side of your long snapper in the punt formation are basically a guard and tackle and ineligible to run downfield. as part of the initial group of gunners and coverage unit. Therefore, they're also ineligible to drift out and maybe become a weapon in the pass, in a fake punt pass situation. There were multiple special teams coordinators around the country. I spoke with the head coach as well. Multiple people called it the Notre Dame rule. There was one coach who called it the South Carolina rule. Nobody disputed that it was very Notre Dame centric, with South Carolina lending to it as well, because those have been the two best teams in college football in terms of executing fakes and fake punts specifically, and nobody as good as Notre Dame in recent years under Marty Biagi. But their contention is, well, you can report a guy eligible or ineligible or eligible but wearing an offensive lineman number. So, for example, if you wanted to try and hide a Luke Talich out there again, the way that Notre Dame did last year against Stanford or whomever, or use the play against Arkansas. And I'm told specifically that Notre Dame's fake punt against Arkansas last year was used in the meeting advocating a rule change. But you can have a Luke Talich or a Drake Bowen or Jalen Sneed, for example. One of those guys can shift his jersey. He can change his jersey into the exempt numbers, which are 50 to 79. And basically it means he's reporting into the game wearing that number. It's an offensive lineman number. He would be eligible in that scenario. So you could have up to 5 guys having to report a new number, a new jersey, just for that one play. So coaches were like, we're supposed to still get the play off in 25 seconds, but we might have 5 guys changing jerseys. And then when the offense takes the field, are you going to give those same 5 guys, if 3 of them, if Drake Bowen and Luke Talich are in the next defensive series, are you going to hold play long enough? So then what are you doing to pace of play? So we wrote extensively about it on USA Today. All the stuff on usatodaysports.com that I've written is free, so you don't have to navigate a paywall to see it. Pretty much all of it is linked or reposted on my Twitter as well, or the platform formerly known as Twitter. Yeah, it is the Notre Dame rule. I'm told that while SEC teams really pushed for it early, that they said it went too far. Even Kirby Smart, who had been at the forefront of wanting some changes to it, according to multiple SEC coaches, he said, no, this goes too far. This violates the spirit of what we wanted to do. This takes it too far the other way. And special teams coordinators supplied us with their data of a vote that they took around the country. 62 Division I special teams coordinators voted on this rule, and data that they were supplying to the NCAA to try to get it modified or repealed. The vote was 61-1 in favor of overturning the rule. And the NCAA said, okay, we see your vote. We're going to keep it exactly as it is. Special teams coordinators also tell me it's a player safety issue, because 81% of all block punts last year came out of the formation that they're now requiring. It's basically the NFL rule that only your gunners can be gunners. Only those guys can really get after what you want to do downfield. So you're going to have more formations where you have 5 guys in tight, and then you have your shield, and then you have your punter, and then you have 3 gunners.
What a dumb rule. These guys are idiots. Who wants to take out a fake punt? One of the few things that can be exciting on special teams, other than just like if a return, some guy breaks a return. And everyone knows that's not that common. You can be an All-American and break 1 or 2 the whole year. Like it's not super common. And also too, kickoffs are already like basically a nothing burger, right? Like most of them are going through the end zone now. There's very few chances. Like, Jadarian Price, I think he only had 10 times or whatever that he got to actually return a kick this year. So there's not a lot of chances to get something exciting from it. And then this is one of the things that makes the game different. Also forces coaches to have to work harder to do it. It boggles my mind. Like I don't understand it. It's so stupid.
All right, let me put up just like a screenshot here so people understand. So there's the long snapper. This is the Arkansas play. This is the long snapper here. And Malachi Fields is on the end, right? He's on the end of the line of scrimmage. And therefore eligible, right? Because there's no one covering him under the old rules. And so what the new rule says is, even though he is uncovered and therefore eligible, that basically since he's next to the center, he is an ineligible player. Is that what the new rule is?
Yes, that is correct.
Saying? All right. So it's funny because they do this for a special teams play for reasons that are unknown. Meanwhile, nobody cares that a couple years ago, Tyler Warren was the center and snapped the ball and ran a post for a touchdown against USC. Like, how is that? I don't understand. Here's the thing about special teams, right? And I've always said this: special teams is special in the sense that that's what we call it, but it is really it is a play. It is a play being run by the offense. In this sense, we are punting it to you, so you get possession, right? That is what we're doing. But it is still a play. Why are you changing it specifically for just special teams? Like, could you do this on offense? Could you run this play as an offensive team? I assume you could, right? Why couldn't you? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Changing it for special teams because they can't determine who is eligible and who is not. It just why? Like, why are we bailing out these guys who can't prepare their team? That's the point that I don't understand.
Yeah, and I would contend like you're punishing a team or a program like Notre Dame that talks about all three phases and lives all three phases, has a head coach that actively coaches a phase of special teams and believes that much in it. And I've had people tell me just how different the program is when they get into Notre Dame. Coaches specifically tell me how different it is to see that the lip service of what is given to special teams is backed up by what is devoted to special teams. And you're neutralizing potential excitement. You're neutralizing something that makes the college game greater than the NFL game, in my opinion. And the coaches would tell you, not only are you neutering all that, but you're making it more dangerous as well and more likely to get punts blocked. You can argue that's a different type of excitement. We'll see if it results in many more blocked punts or injuries or what have you as this season unfolds. And we'll see how it gets addressed. I would imagine that it's a rule that will be promptly revisited potentially in February. The coaches convention moved to February of next year because of the transfer portal window. And it's actually in Indianapolis next year. So certainly I'll be at that, which is a staple event I cover every year.
Question. If let's say it was Malachi Fields or another wide receiver, if he changes jerseys,
then I do think he's eligible. But he has to report, and then the official has to announce. Number 1 is wearing number 52.
And then it's whatever. It's
okay. Yeah. All right.
It's taken away.
These guys
doing stuff.
Lincoln Riley's pumped. He's pumped. the 0 minutes of practice he spends on special teams finally pays off for him.
Yeah.
Just also breaking news: the championship window just opened for USC. Year 5 just opened. They just got it open. Congrats all USC fans.
Look, everything's breaking for them. You don't have a special teams coach, and the rules are changing, so special teams doesn't matter. It's great. No, man, the thing that you're eligible if you wear 79, but not if you wear number 1 is tight. It's very, very good. All right. Listen, boys, I think we rocked them. I think we can end it there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell. See whatever it is. We are going live. Did you want to say something, JP?
I did. I wanted to say real quickly, especially since ESQ is a sponsor of the show, I wore ESQ threads in one of my interviews with USA Today. So I'm not saying that's why I got the job, but it damn sure didn't hurt. Shout out Ge Wang.
Ge Wang.
Oh yeah,
I'm not saying that's why you got it, but it's not why you got it, and that's you can't say 100% of the time you interviewed with USA Today wearing ESQ, you got the job, and so that's just facts. All right, everybody, we'll be back on Thursday, and you can find John Brice at USA Today Sports, and he's at John Brice1, I believe, on Twitter. Check them out for breaking news. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, John, again. We will talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.